And I want to just give a warm welcome from DIIT. My name's Laura Ogando, Program Manager for the Office of Digital Literacy and Inclusion. I am joined by my colleagues who are on the call today. So I'm going to quickly kick it over to Lisa just to quickly say good morning.
Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As I put in the chat, we're really excited about Sway, not only because it's a fabulous tool, but it has great built-in accessibility. And I saw some of you already know Michaela. She's wonderful. So we're really excited to bring this fabulous treat to you today. And I'll turn it back over to you, Laura. Thanks.
No problem, no problem. And Christina, are you on the
Yes,
line?
I am here. I am here. We couldn't really hear Lisa though. The sound was really, really low. So I don't know if she was talking, but hi, Lisa. Yeah, I think people couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
but hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy to be here. I just have one minor announcement. So the Tech Talk Friday is going to be happening on the 23rd. You will get a calendar update by the end of today. So stay tuned for that. But I'll be in the back channel supporting. And if you have any questions throughout the day, I love Sway. I'm excited for today's session and I'm kicking it back to Laura.
Thank you, thank you. And I always like to shout out our colleague Latiqua. She makes it happen on the back end of things. I swear I can't teach without her. I don't know what I'm going to do when she decides to leave us because she's awesome. But I do want to, for folks that miss what Lisa said, Sway, really, really amazing platform to use. And one of the cool things about it is that not only is it going to create really beautiful content for you, um, but it's super accessible. And when it comes to this work that we're doing now, our team is really big on the accessibility piece. It is so, so important, right? That we are creating content that is accessible to folks. That has to be at the forefront. So that's the really great thing with Microsoft. And that was kind of what Lisa was highlighting. Our apologies that you couldn't hear her, but um, we'll make sure we get her audio fixed. All right, folks. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Derry to give us some welcome from her office and face.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Digital Friday. So super excited because, like Laura mentioned, we are the team, the Digital Friday team, and we have today our girl, Michaela from Microsoft Suede. And I just want to say that I'm excited because Suede is another way that we can outreach to our families and also promote what we're doing in our schools and our districts to really engage our family and empower our families to become our partners in this work. So I'm excited to learn some new tips and tools that we can use every day as we are outreaching to our family and showcasing family engagement in our schools and our community. I'm also here with my colleague, Diana Miller. I'm just going to turn it over to Diana really quickly to say hello.
Good morning, everyone. As always, I'm full of energy. I look forward to my Fridays because this is how I am so empowered. It's been an overwhelming, crazy, chaotic week. I felt like lost so many times trying to catch up. And, it's been tough. We're all going through so many tough changes and a lot of changes with face, with everything, our external, internal. So I look forward to learning a lot today with, the topic soiree. And I'm excited. I'm always looking to learn. So I'm glad that you're all here and participating because I don't know why every time I come to this platform, I'm already energized. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Diana. I also have my colleague, Chanel. We call her the face of face, and she will be interacting on the chat. So you have a question, a face question, Chanel will monitor the chat, and we will be learning and growing together in this digital platform, all things digital, and enjoying our topic and how we can use Sway. Please stay with us to the end. We're gonna actually, we're gonna have a actually we're gonna have a party after this party. We have some music. We're gonna jam out, and if you do have additional questions for us, we will stay after the presentation just to give you another update. So thank you so much for joining the Friday, and we're really really excited. Again, we're gonna start shortly. So if you don't see your colleague, your friend, please send them a friendly reminder. Let them know that we're here on Zoom on our Friday platform. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you so much. And I don't believe Tali, are you here with us? I don't believe she is. Again, Tali, she's a little hit or miss only because she's a parent as well as trying to do her job at Common Sense. But I do want to, on behalf of Tali, say welcome. She's got some great resources that come to us from Common Sense and Wide Open School. Remember last week, we heard from Tali and her colleague Gretchen all about Wide Open School. So we're just going to quickly remind you, remember, those are two great resources that you can share with your families. The resources on there are just so amazing. And what makes it so great is that, it's vetted, right? I think so many of our families right now, they don't know what to do. And when you don't know what to do, you end up just doing a Google search, right? Like we fall back on Google, just like, let me see what pops up, right? And we may or may not be using quality stuff. That's kind of where, it's a slippery slope. And sometimes you end up with something good, and then sometimes you end up with something that's not so good. Privacy wise, it may not be safe, content wise, it may not be sound. So that's the good news with Wide Open School. And remember, Wide Open School, I'm going to quickly open this up for folks so that you can see. There's a specific DOE kind of portal. So you can certainly go to wideopenschool.org and kind of get the generic one.
Research is looking to being done.
So remember, folks, keep your mics muted. Thank you. But the one for the DOE specifically has some information that's relevant to us. So you'll notice here with the DOE one that you've got ParentU on there, and that was something they talked about last week. So please, please, please give this a look. This is an amazing, amazing resource. And again, all curated and vetted by the folks at Common Sense and Wide Open School. So it's good, all right? It's safe and it's high quality, amazing, amazing work, all right? So I always like to highlight it because if you haven't sent this resource along to your families, what are you waiting for, right? They need this. All right, but with that, gonna launch our first poll. You know how we do. We like to see who is in our Zoom room. So 1 second, I'm gonna launch this. And we got quite a house today. I see we have over 150 folks here. So you should see a poll on your screen. Let us know what your role is. We know and we expect there's going to be tons of PCs, but we also know we get a few other folks here. So if you're an FSC, FLC, certainly let us know. We got teachers, school secretary, administrators. And if you happen to be just those handful of folks who are, the other category, pop it into the chat. Let us know what you do. We're always curious as to the other.
Yes, and we're also curious to see if this is your first Friday. If this is your first Friday, drop it in the chat. Let us know if this is your first Friday. Oh, we have a first.
Oh, Sarani. Hey, girl. How you doing?
Hi, Anna. Welcome, 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 Robert. Welcome, Jenny.
Absolutely. This is exciting. And to Deidre, for those of you that this is your very first Friday PD, I get the feeling you are going to be in for a treat and we're going to hook you in. That's what happens. We get our meat hooks in you and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to come to this every week. I think there's FOMO for the folks that literally can't come. I'm like, oh man, I had a meeting. So don't worry. We do these every Friday. I'm going to give folks just another moment or so, and then I'm going to close this poll.
Welcome to all of our first Friday participants. Welcome. Oh my gosh, this is such a treat. I just have to say that our wonderful Friday team, especially our wonderful friends and our colleagues at EIIT, they make these Fridays happen. So super excited. Thank you. And welcome.
Absolutely. All right. So folks, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. I'm going to share the results with you. So as you can see, we have an overwhelming number of PCs as per usual, right? But we also have some of our FSCs, FLCs. We got a couple of teachers and even a few school administrators. So welcome to everyone. We know that some of you, and I see it in the chat, some of you may need to leave early. That's okay. We understand. That is precisely why we record our sessions, so that, you know, for folks who have to bounce a little early, you can always view the recording. We put the information in our team. We can also, Latikwa will drop a link into the chat to our YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe to that channel, because then you don't have to bookmark it, you don't have to worry about it. You're just kind of subscribed to it, and you will constantly see any new recordings in our YouTube channel, all right? So with that, let me stop sharing this poll, because you know how we do. We got to know how you're feeling, all right? So let me launch that one. And just a little transparent facilitation, because I know we have a lot of first timers on. We like to do, you know, just a feelings check-in. It's a good kind of practice to have, to check in with your audience. If you're running a session for your families, even for your school, it's always just kind of nice to say like, hey, how's it going? How you feeling, right? And remember, for folks who who requested it, we got the H and the I options, which are the none of the above and the all of the feelings, right? So, and Lisa, I'm so happy to hear that, right? Happy when we're here. I feel the same way. It's like my week, oh man, I think I have all the feelings throughout the week. But once I get into this, call, it's like I'm full on happy. So Nancy, yes, the links have been posted in the chat. We can repost the links for today's session. Latikwa will do that for us in a moment. You'll get the link to the presentation and the agenda. Although from what I think Michaela said, we're really going to be in Sway as opposed to like in a presentation, but just keep that in mind, all right? And we will share all those resources. I am going to end our poll because we have one more. I know you're probably all polled out, but I do want to just show you what's on deck for the upcoming weeks. So March 19th, we're going to do our remote facilitation part 2 class. If you didn't, attend the part 1, not a big deal. Remember, you can find it in our YouTube channel. All right. And I realized I didn't share the results with you. So here you go. We are overwhelmingly happy. But yeah, so if you didn't come to the first one, not a big deal. Again, you can watch the recording. These really do function independent of each other. All right. But that's happening next Friday. And then the Friday after that, we're going to do what I call a 2-for-1, right? We're going to give you writing for effective translation and writing in plain language. So we're going to do that for you. And then it's spring break. So what that means, all right, we need to kind of start thinking about what's coming after spring break. I know, crazy, right? But let me stop sharing so that we can get to our next poll. So 1 second here. All right. So you should see a poll appearing on your screen about kind of what sessions would be helpful for right about now. All right. And I will tell you, I know Canva was something that a few folks kind of mentioned in our last call. I want to just let you know right now, I have a meeting on deck with our girl, Lori. We are going to plan an awesome Canva PD that she's probably going to lead for us, because I'll tell you right now, I'm not the expert on Canva. I've used it just a handful of times, but we're going to bring that to you. And I'm excited because I think the work that Lori's doing is just amazing, and how she's using it to really jazz up her communications at the school level. Super awesome. So that's gonna be on deck. We're developing that. So again, kind of let us know your priority needs, because that is what allows us to kind of think through the scheduling. All right. So Canva's happening. It's just a matter of like how quick it'll happen and how quickly we can get the resources together. And then we've also that helping parents navigate the Google Classroom and Drive. We've got our folks from Mouse who are going to lead that one. So again, this is just going to help us as we're scheduling for after spring break. Okay. All right, so gonna give folks just another moment. And you know, I should have also said, if there's something you don't see on here, right? Like, because we've only got a few options. If there's something you don't see, but you're like, man, I wish you had this class. I wish you could give us the support. Pop it into the chat, all right? Because that's also how we develop things. We really want to be responsive to the needs of this community. And so if there's something you need, you just gotta let us know, all right? All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. All right, and we are going to turn it over to Michaela and Microsoft. So Michaela, are you on the line? Because I know we were having some difficulties getting her in. So Michaela, if you are on the line, please unmute yourself.
I am. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me this morning. I'm so sorry. I was chatting with Lisa on Teams, and I'm actually logged in as my husband because I don't use Zoom very often, and he does. So I'm logged in as. So apparently that's going to be my alter ego today, is Kenzie Maddox. So
you got it. Don't worry.
I've been hanging out for a while, but I'm sorry if I caused any stress. Like, she's not here yet.
No.
Oh no, Michaela, you're at the right spot. We are excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thank you guys so much for having me. Okay, so I'll prove that it's really me, not my husband. So I'll just come and say hi. And yeah, thank you guys so much for joining this morning. It's a pleasure to be included on your fun PDs. I love the energy. Everyone seems really excited, and that's awesome. So hopefully we're gonna keep that momentum going and talk about Microsoft Sway and how you can use this in a family-facing role. So as Laura mentioned, I'm gonna be doing more of a live demo this morning. I'm also going to I'll provide some links to some sways that I have created, so you can kind of see what the end project is like. I've also created some family-facing sways that can be really helpful, that you're also welcome to use and to send out to the families that you work with. So that should all be helpful for you. And then I'm going to also show some resources and some training online if you do want to go back and get some additional training on Sway. So all of that will be shared as we go. So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to share my screen, and let's jump right into it. Okay. And like I said, I do not use Zoom very often, since I do everything in Microsoft. So please give me a little bit of patience if I have anything that might go awry quick. So I wanted to start in here. I just want to start quick run through of our agenda here. This can be a looser agenda, but I just wanted to kind of go over what we're talking about today. So first, we're going to talk about introductions, which again, I'm Michaela. I didn't really introduce myself very well. I'm the Microsoft Learning Consultant in New York. I've been doing this job for almost 6 years, and I love working with parent coordinators I've been doing it for quite a while, and it's always a really fun group for me to work with. So I perhaps have met some of you within, over the years. If not, it's nice to meet you. And we are, as I said, I'm here as a resource. So I work for Microsoft, but I'm here as a resource for New York City DOE. So if you're looking to do any trainings at your schools on anything within the Microsoft 365 suite, I'll share my contact information at the end as well. I'm a free resource for all things training. So really what we're going to talk about today is Sway, which is a presentation tool. And any questions that you all have, please place those in the chat. I know Laura, and I think there are a couple other people that are going to be monitoring the chat, and I'll also allow for some time at the end if there's anything we don't cover. So we're going to jump into Sway, talk about what it is, do some kind of basics, looking at Sway, and then jump into utilizing Sway templates, particularly in your family-facing roles. One that I show frequently to parent coordinators and other family-facing roles is the newsletter template. Very easy to create newsletters for families. And when you create a Sway, you're essentially creating a website. So it's also very easy to share across multiple platforms. So we're also going to go over all of the different sharing capabilities as well. And then finally, I wanted to give you guys some additional ideas for using Sways within your family-facing role. So as I said, I have a couple parent Sways that I've created, particularly this over the course of the last year, since this has been a very challenging time for many reasons, but I think, communicating with families has been, at an all-time high tricky point. So I wanted to share those as well. And then finally, the last couple of minutes, I just want to also show you some of the accessibility tools that are in Microsoft, if you are not familiar with them. Just things like translation and subtitles. As I said, this year has been really hard for a lot of people, a lot of families, and that's just even harder for our English language learning families. So I wanted to just show a couple of things that you can utilize in your Microsoft suite that do translate, that you can add subtitles in, and then finally also talk about the immersive reader. If you do work with any families where the children have some difficulties with reading and even translation, it's just a great resource. And then, as I said, the last couple minutes, we'll do kind of a Q&A, anything that I may have missed or anything that might occur to you at the end. So if that sounds good, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go into my New York City DOE account. And first, I just wanted to show, if you're not familiar, what is Sway in general? What does it do? So essentially, the way I think of Sway, I think of it as PowerPoint's kind of cooler, hipper, younger sister, in the sense that when you create a PowerPoint presentation, you're creating a slideshow, right? You're getting your content, you're putting those on different slides, and then you're sending out that slideshow. Whereas when you create a Sway, you're, as I said, really making a website. So it's kind of just a more modern way to create a presentation. You're making a website and creating a story. So that's really how I think of it. It's very straightforward and pretty easy to use. But if just kind of the difference, because I get that question a lot too, is, why would I do a Sway over a PowerPoint, or when would I do a Sway over a PowerPoint? And it's not really one or over the other, but Sway is just, like I said, it's a little bit more modern way of doing a presentation. So Sway is all an online tool. So you would go into, when you sign into office.com and sign into your DOE account, if you come down to the bottom here to your all apps, you can find Sway in the list of all the apps you have, which is in alphabetical order. So here, create and share interactive reports, presentations, and personal stories. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Sway. And then I want to talk about, before we kind of jump into the template, first I just want to go over a couple basics with you from the get-go. So the first thing, there are a couple of different ways to create a Sway. So the first thing is doing a blank Sway. The blank Sway is, I refer to this kind of as a bare bones Sway frequently, because it is that, it's just completely blank. You just have to kind of start from scratch to create a presentation. Whereas the other options, when you start from a document, you're able to pull content from other places and turn it into a sway. So even if you had a Word document or a PowerPoint, it would pull everything into that sway. So it would pull all text, all pictures, and then kind of start to create your presentation for you. And you can kind of reorganize it if you need to. And then finally, we do have the templates, as I mentioned. So if I click on that more templates, you can see there's several here. Portfolios, a standard presentation. Today, we're going to really look at the newsletter one in your roles, but there's a lot here too. And as I said, aside from newsletters, Sway can be used to just to give any kind of standard information that you need to send out to families or within the school as well. But to go over the basics, I'm going to first just go in and hit new blank Sway. So as I said, I refer to this as a bare bones Sway. And the reason that I do that is because it's pretty blank, right? It's just like put in a title and go for it. So a lot of times I'll start this, and I feel like there are kind of two kinds of people in the world. Sort of my theory when I use Sway. The first kind of person will see just all of this white space and be very excited. They're like, oh, I can do whatever I want. I can pull in whatever kind of content I want. I can write whatever I want. That's the first type. The second type of person sees this and they're like, I don't know how to start. The white space is overwhelming. I don't really know where to begin. So if you're the first type of person, that's great. You can start your Sway this way. If you're the second type of person, we're going to look at the templates as well. So it's kind of, it kind of works for everyone. So first of all, just to go over a couple of things at the top here, right under where it says Sway, you have two different tabs. You have your storyline and your design. So your storyline is where you're building your Sway. That's where you're adding in the different types of content. And your design, when you click over to the design side, that's where you can start to see the presentation taking shape. So once we start putting stuff in here, I'll click over to that side. And what Sway does is it does all of that. It does kind of all the background work for you. You can customize it, but it does a lot of that work in terms of setting up different colors and themes and fonts for you. So first thing to really get started, you need to give your Sway a title, correct? So if I was doing a Sway on Microsoft Tools, I'm going to give it a title here. And then I want to start adding in some additional items here. So we call these content cards. Everything you're adding, all the content you're adding to a Sway is in these cards. So in the first one, you see I can write Microsoft Tools, and then I have the option to add a background image. When I click that, my little sidebar of images is going to come up. So I can search online images directly in Sway. I don't have to leave Sway, go do, a Bing or a Google search on my own, save the image, bring it back in here. I can do that. I can also, at the top here, I have suggested, I can also pull images from my OneDrive, from a Flickr account, from my device, or videos from YouTube. So that's really up to you. I'm going to do everything online today. So I'm just going to click into this Microsoft Tools here. And then that's going to bring up all kinds of different images. These are all a bit kind of technical. I think for my purposes today, I want to just take off that tools. So up at the top, you'll see what you put in for a title. You can kind of change what it's searching for. So for me, I kind of just want a logo. I think that makes more sense in this particular one. So I'm going to grab just a very basic Microsoft logo. You see when I click it, I get a check mark. I'm going to hit add. And now I've titled my Sway. I put in a background image. So the next, we're just going to go over adding more content. And the way you do that, you have the little plus sign here. When you click it, it gives you all the different types of content you can add. So it will make suggestions for you. It also lays out the different types of content into the 3 categories of text, media, or grouping. Text, very straightforward. If you want to include any text, you can do a heading and then a text box. The media option is for images, videos, audio files. You can embed files or websites in here, and you can also upload files in here as well. So those are your options for media. And then finally, your grouping options. This one is great if you have a very photo or image heavy presentation. So if you were sharing, maybe you're going to do a recap of an event at school. Maybe you just had students start to go back in the building and you took some photos in classrooms and wanted to share that. This is a great way because you can create a grid, you can create a stack or a slideshow of those images. So it's a great way to do that as well. I'm going to just start from the very top. I'm going to do some text, can put in a heading. So maybe if I'm talking about Microsoft tools, maybe the first one I want to talk about is Sway. That makes sense. And then here it's really the same thing. I can go in and add my background image. I'm going to change this up here to Sway because I want to grab my Sway logo. I'm going to hit add. And then I would just kind of keep going. So if I'm first talking about Sway, I put in my heading. Next, I want to put in my text. And that's just going to give you a text box where you can put in your information. I would, obviously I'd usually write more than that if I was doing this, but I did want to show you have options for emphasizing or accenting words. You can use bullet points, numbers, you can include a hyperlink in here. So those are all your text box options. And so you can really, write as much content as you need here. So that's our first one in terms of text. Again, really straightforward. Next, I want to jump over to media. Again, this one is pretty straightforward as well. Image will just bring up an image card, which looks really similar to what we did with the titles and the headings. So if I just want to put in, oh, it also put in Sway from MTV. I don't know if anyone else remembers it. Oh, that's funny. Maybe I'm gonna put in these guys, put that image in. So it's really just kind of adding in, different images here. One thing I wanted to point out with the image is you also have this tool up at the top. This is your focus points. So if I click on that focus points, that's going to open up my image. And you see how this is a horizontal image, right? So because you're not able to in Sway crop things exactly how you want, but you can adjust what the focal point is going to be. So if you have an image and it looks a little weird and it's not showing what you want, you just want to make sure to hit this little tool. We'll come up here and you see it's going to give you a preview of what this Sway is going to look like on both a device and a phone. So I can do things like if I click the entire image is important, you see how it readjusts for me here. I can also just click somewhere in the image. So say this guy I want to focus on primarily. If I click on him, that will also adjust where my focal point is within my image. So this button, just remember that when you're doing images in here, depending on the way they're laid out. So that's my image option. My video option is just that, it does a video. This actually searches through YouTube. So I could search for, maybe I want a Sway tutorial. I could search through there. And this is gonna search all through YouTube. I'll grab the Office one and add that. And then that video will play directly in your presentation. Okay, so then moving through a couple other here, just want to make sure we have enough time to be able to talk about the newsletter as well. Excuse me, our media option gives you the option to add audio clips. So if I go in to audio here, this is where I can add, oh, excuse me, I had a tickle in my throat. Okay, I can add an existing audio file or I can record my voice. So if I wanted to add in myself, maybe talking about something, I could do so, and that's going to add directly into my Sway. That could be great if you did, kind of want to make it a little more personal, share your voice, particularly if you still have a lot of 100% remote students, can be really helpful. So if I hit that, it will ask if I can use my microphone. It will give me a little countdown here. And then I can say, hi, everyone, this is Michaela. I want to talk about Sway with you all today. Thank you for coming, and, you know, kind of go through what I'm saying. As you can see here, I have 5 minutes. When I stop that, I can play it back, and then I can say, hi, everyone, this is Michaela. I want to, and then if I like it, I can add it or I can re-record. It's always like horrible to hear the sound of your own voice. But once I add it, that will add into my Sway. And I'm going to switch over to design and show you what this all looks like. So that's our audio option. And then beyond that, for our media, you have the ability, as I said, to embed. So you could embed a video if you had the embed code. You could embed a file, a website. So you could embed a Microsoft form in here if you get that embed code. So if you were using this for families and maybe at the end you included a survey or a form to get information, that's a great use for this as well, because it will embed it directly in the Sway. So parents can just answer the form in the Sway. They don't have to leave and go, you know, to another window or another program. So that one's really helpful here as well. And then finally, the upload is where I could upload a document or a photo within here. So if I just go here, let me go into my documents. I'm just gonna put in this Word document, and that will just add that file in and put it in the Sway format for me. So if you already have things created, this is a really easy way to make them a Sway too. So those are different types of content. What I want to do now is I want to show you kind of what this looks like. So once I get all this in place, I can click over to my design tab at the top. When I do so, I can start to see what this is looking like. So here I can see this is my title. Like I said, in Sway, you don't have to do any of the design work. It will just bring this up for you in terms of the fonts, the colors. I can kind of scroll down, start to see what I added. Here's that photo. Here's the video. Here's my audio file. So these will play, the videos will play directly in the presentation if you're including them, which is great.
Hi.
As will my audio file if it has finished uploading. Sometimes there and goes. Then I can say, hi, everyone. This is, again, sound of your own voice. So I can just kind of continuously scroll down. And then this is the document that I added to. So this is kind of how it will shape up. Now, this particular example, it's a little bit boring, right? It's just, you can kind of see there's a texture, but it's just a white background. I might want to, you know, kind of enhance that a little bit. So if I come up here, you have this little painter's palette, and this is where you can adjust some of those things within your Sway. So first thing you can adjust if it is scrolling vertical or horizontally. So I can change it to horizontal, and then you can see it here in this window. So I can see, oh, I kind of like it scrolling this way. I can also go in and see all of these different tools within here, all these different templates. And you see when I change my templates, it's going to change kind of the theme colors here. And I think in my last training, I changed the app language, which is why it all looks like this, which I'll show you guys how to do as well. You're probably like, what is that? So you can actually change the language of the app. But here you can see these are, you know, more solid color backgrounds, and there's a ton of really cool templates in here. So I can kind of go through until I find one that I like. There's also some just pattern backgrounds, which are kind of nice too from a design perspective. So in terms of using this kind of, you know, not as a replacement for PowerPoint, but it's a little easier when you're doing kind of that background design. It'll consistently do the whole Sway, so you're not having to go slide by slide and really do that, which is nice. And then you also at the top have this remix button. So I can also just hit remix and it will just give me a different style. So if I don't even want to go through these templates, if that just seems like too much, I can just hit this remix button. And let me just move this. I'm sorry, I should have moved that. I can just hit this remix button and it will just literally remix it for me, which is also really cool. And then up at the top, I have a back arrow. So if I remix it and then I want to go back, I'm like, oh, I really like the one before, I can hit the back button as well. If you are really wanting to customize it in terms of you want to decide the exact font, you want to decide kind of everything, you're able to do so here as well. Okay, so last thing I want to mention, just kind of in this basic view, is you also have the ability to determine how much of an emphasis you want certain pieces of content to be. So you see, this is what I wrote in my text box, right? Microsoft Sway is a presentation tool. So this is pretty small in the grand scheme of my presentation. Maybe I want this to stand out a little more. What I can do, you see when I click on it, it will highlight it, and I can edit it directly from here, but I can also choose the emphasis of it. And when I do that, it's on subtle. If I bump this up to moderate, you see how it makes it a bit bigger. It added in this kind of little highlight bar on the side here. So I'm able to do that to, like I said, if you have certain elements in your design that you want to stand out a bit more, that's also a great way to do it. What you can also do, I'm going to hop back to my storyline because I just want to show you that you can do that just directly inside of here as well. So say, for example, this, the video or the photo I put in right now, these little squares in the brackets, these are the emphasis. So right now that's on subtle. I can bump that up to moderate, and I can also make it intense, which the intense feature, that's going to make it pretty much full screen. So you see how it made this bigger. This is a terrible photo I chose. I'm very sorry to that person. And then if I go back, if I put it back down to moderate and then go into design, you see how it's just going to adjust. And you can do that for videos. You can do that for really anything. So that's kind of just very, very basic elements of how you're adding content into a Sway. In terms of kind of getting it all in one place, adjusting the styles, and then choosing that emphasis. So that's the first one I wanted to show you. And again, I know there might be questions in the chat, and if there's anything outstanding, we can cover that at the end. Because I do want to jump into our newsletter template. So I am going to do that. I'm going to go back to my just Sway button here at the top. I'm going to hit Sway, and that's going to take me back to my main page. And then what you can see here, this is the Sway I just created. So they're all saving automatically here. So this is where you'd always go back to get them. And now if I scroll down to my templates here, I'm going to go into my newsletter template. So I'm going to click on that. And that's going to open up this already kind of full Sway where I can kind of scroll through. I can see there's some animations in here. Everything's kind of set up. It gives you helpful clues of how to do this. So telling you, write a summary, put in a first story, a second story, etc. So this is also a different way to go. And if you like this template, what you can do is you can hit start editing this Sway. That sets your template up. And as I said kind of at the beginning, this is for the second type of person who sees that empty white space and is like, I don't know how to start, because this does all the content cards for you. So it puts everything in place for you. So you don't have to add, like, you can see your title, you have your text card, you have images, all of that's already here. And it does give you kind of clues for how to get started. So the templates are really cool. And then what you're doing, you're just swapping out that information. So you're going, you're not going to want to call the title of your newsletter title. You're probably going to want to call it the name of your school. I'm just going to make one up. PS, let's do PS 25, parent. I'm not going to do parent. I'll do March newsletter here. And then I would just kind of continue doing that to go throughout. And what I can do, it has these photos in here of some teenagers gardening. If you want to customize that, which you probably will for your particular school, if you pull down this details, that's where you can see you have your title and your background image. When I click on that, I can just toss that photo, just delete that photo, and then I can add a new one. You also have the option to add a logo. So if you have a logo at your school, you could add in your school logo to do kind of the background, or you could add in a background image. And when you do that, it's really the same thing where you can search images, or you can pull an image from your OneDrive or from your device. If you have an image of the school, or maybe an image of someone at the school you're highlighting, that's how you could do it. I'm just gonna search for a generic school just to show you. Very, very fancy schools come up when I search for a generic school. I'm gonna put in this guy and add it. And then that's gonna add it on your title card. And then I can pull that back up. And then, like I said, from here, you would just, really go through and put in, your newsletter. It is already March. It's been March. I can't believe it's already March 12th, to be honest with you. And just kind of, like I said, you're just kind of going through and swapping out the information. And then as you're going through, you have your little table of contents where you can, write about what you're talking about that month, swap that information out. And then what I also wanted to say, this is a template, but you absolutely do not have to follow this to a T, because like in this case, for this template, you have a first story and a second story and a coming up next month. Maybe this month you don't have a second story. It's March, we have spring break in this month. That's been kind of a weird year. Maybe you just kind of have one thing you want to share. If you go, I'm just going to scroll down to our second story and say I don't have this one. You see how it's all grouped in kind of this gray? If I click on that, the little trash can will appear and I can just delete that. So if I don't have a second story or I don't have any other sections, like I said, it's, it's March, it's kind of a shorter month with the spring break. I can just delete those. So again, the newsletter or the templates are wonderful in terms of helping you get started and customizing them, but you can absolutely kind of tailor it for your own needs, which I really like, because sometimes you're not going to have all of that information to put in. And like I said, you'll just kind of run through, put all your information in here, all the image cards, you pull down that details and delete that image. And then you can go through and add your own in. And again, you can add in images you're searching. You can add in images from your device or your OneDrive. So it's really easy to make it customizable. And then once you're it's the same thing. Once you start getting stuff in here, if you toggle over to design, and I'm all the way at the bottom here, let me scroll back up. You'll see that I replaced this. I put in this school, and you can kind of see the changes you're making. And you can do the same thing. This newsletter was set up with that. It's kind of this olive green, but if you wanted to customize this for your school, you can do that as well. So I can go again to the styles and I can switch this up, even though it's a template. So you still have those capabilities. So those are
Michaela?
Yes.
Can I jump in really quickly with just something I'm seeing in the chat?
Sure.
Because this looks fabulous and folks are super excited. But one thing that's coming up is, can you talk about some of the accessibility features, particularly since we're adding images, alt text and all that good stuff? Because I know Sway is super accessible.
Yep, thank you so much for the transition. Yes, so once you kind of have all this in, up at the top, I have these three dots, right? If I click on that, that's going to give me all my settings for Sway, my ability to duplicate, save as a template, all of that. But I also have an accessibility checker built into Sway. When I click on the accessibility checker, that's what's going to bring in all my alternative text options, and it will just give me some improvements I can make. I grabbed the Budapest Business School. That feels like a very fancy one. And it will provide, if you're putting in search images, it will provide that text for you, or you can, adjust it. And then you'll also, if I go back here, I have 4 images that need alternative text. So I can kind of scroll through, and this has the alternative text built in because this was a template. So these are built in. So when you go, if you use the templates, when you go in and replace them, you would have to go in and replace that alternative text in here. And the accessibility checker in this particular one, let me just go back to the checker. It will also give you here at the bottom, there's a tips for making your Sway accessible. So that will take you to this page, which is also just really, really great tips if you're looking to really kind of, bump up your accessibility in terms of sending these out. So I would definitely come in here. It will also bring up certain things. So if you have, too much white space on your screen, or if things are just kind of not reading right, it will give you those tips as well. So that's just automatically built in, as is that checker as well within here. What you can also do, if I again click on my 3 dots, under my accessibility checker, I have my accessibility view. So I can view what my Sway is going to look like from an accessibility view, and it will just kind of change fonts. You can see it made these quite larger. It simplified the text as opposed to the other one. So you can also just see it from an accessibility view as well, which is great. And then a couple other things I wanted to show you in my Sway, or in the settings before I move on, is you can go through and make, let me go back to my newsletter here. So I'm still in these 3 dots in my settings. So another thing I wanted to point out is you can save your own as a template. So even if you use a template and you do customize it, so you customize it for your school, you put in the pictures of your school or the logo or just kind of that general information, you can save that as a template. So if you do your March newsletter, then when you go to do your April newsletter, you would go to your own template where you already have some of your particular school images and information is already going to be in there. So even though you're starting from a template, you're not having to start from scratch every month. So I love that because, if you go back to the original template and then you have to re-swap all those images out and kind of redo it, that can be, that's kind of labor intensive. So I love that feature because then you just save it as a template, and then you would have a copy of month to month. You'd have your March, you'd have your April, May, June, etc. And you wouldn't have to kind of go back and start from the beginning. So that's a great one as well. You can also duplicate Sways. So if you wanted to create one, 2 slightly different ones, you can duplicate it and it will duplicate the link for you, which is also a great use. And you can also export these. So I want to talk about the sharing capabilities as well. So as I said, Sway is all an online program. So when you do go to share it, I'm going to come up here to my share options. It's going to give you a link. So for someone to open this, they would need an internet connection. You can also get an embed code, and you could embed this like on the school's website. And if you're sending this to parents, you just want to make sure you change those permissions to anyone with a link. It will default to those in your organization, and that just means that only New York City DOE people would be able to open it. So you want to change it to anyone with a link, and then you can copy this link. You could send this in an email. You could post this in, whatever, if you're using Teams or if you're using Google Classroom, you could post it there. You could send it in, if you use one of the apps like Constella or ClassDojo, or there's so many of them, you could share it that way. So that's all wonderful. But I did want to point out as well, again, if I come to my 3 dots here, I can also export this to a Word document or a PDF. Now, if you do that, you're going to lose kind of that animation, obviously. But if you do kind of have, some parents where sending them a link is going to make it kind of inaccessible for them, in certain instances, you can also save it as a PDF and put that somewhere else or share that in a different way. So you do also have that option. And it will do just that. It will export it and then it will download it and you can save that and send it out. So that's also an option you have in your settings. There's my PDF. I just want to show you really quickly. I know I have a couple more things to show you before I am officially out of time, and I want to be very respectful, but I just want to show you, like I said, all the information and photos will still be there. So if you did kind of want, this is more, even though it's still on my computer, it's more like a hard copy. So if you did want that, you still have that ability to do so, which is here. All right, I'm going to go back to my newsletter. And a couple other things I wanted to just talk about here. We talked about our accessibility. We talked about the view, saving as a template, duplicating. You can also print these if you do want an actual hard copy. This would print for you. There's also in here, you have your settings for the Sway. So this is where you're setting up that language options. You can also put this on like an autoplay, so it will loop through the entire Sway if you're doing a presentation and showing it, like sharing your screen. So that's an option here as well. So these are all of your settings. And then kind of last but not least here, there's also help option. When I go to that, it will give me a couple options. I can read help and how-to articles. I can find answers in the Sway community forum. I can give feedback to Microsoft. So if you think of, Sway is great, but it'd be really cool if it did this, that's a great use for it. They do listen to educators, so I would recommend that. Or you can, report something if something goes awry in here as well. So those are your options. And then finally, like I said, these share options, just to kind of reiterate, if you're sending this to families, just make sure you change it here and you can get that copy, that link. One other great option, if you are going to be emailing these, getting the visual link will put this into the email message. You just copy it. And it just is a lot more visually appealing than just a link you have to click on. And then the recipients will just click on this photo. So I like doing that when I do email things because, like I said, it's more visually appealing. And then I can also share these on things like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn as well. I can also password protect this if that's something that you'd want to do as well. And then last but not least, I've been talking about giving this to families that you would want to do with a view link. Now, if you're in the case where maybe you're going to be working on Sways with one of your colleagues or the principal or the AP, or you have someone else that wants to add to it, you can also send them an edit link, and that's going to allow them to also see the storyline and make changes in this way. So that can also be really helpful as well. So I would check that out too. So those are all there. And then what I want to share with you all next is a couple of other use cases for Sway. So we talked a lot about the newsletter, and I just want to share ones that I created. So I did a series for Brooklyn South actually, and I've been doing kind of this parent training, and I do it once a month for parents, just as a guide to Microsoft for parents that's their children have accounts. So to give them a resource, I created a Sway rather than creating a PowerPoint. So this is kind of another option. If it's just any information you want to give out to parents, creating it in this format is really helpful. So in this example, I created, this is the URL, which I can share in our chat as well before we're done. But it's just, I made a smaller one. It's tinyurl.com/NYC DOE And then I put in here just how do I access my child's New York City DOE account? And I put a link, I put instructions. I put a video, how to do it. And then I just put in information about the students' New York City DOE account with some screenshots of actually my son's account here. And then I put a link to the DOE's website for more information. So this is, again, just kind of a resource guide that I thought would be helpful for parents to get. I also included resource for getting started with Microsoft. So if parents had questions about how to use OneNote, how to use Teams, the Student Help Center, I put in this getting started PDF Microsoft created. So again, this is just kind of another idea of other ways to use Sway in a family-facing role that might not necessarily be newsletters. Like this is information for families, but creating it in a Sway and having that link is just a really easy way to send this out. So I'll put this link in the chat in just a moment. And I also did this, I translated and made it in Spanish too, so I can send you all the Spanish version if that would also be helpful for you. So those are some ideas. I think I have, yes, I do have the Spanish version open here. So I have that same thing in Spanish as well. So that's just another idea here that I can send you all. And then kind of on that same topic in terms of translation and subtitles, I did also kind of to end before we're out of time today, I had mentioned talking about some of those accessibility features that are in Microsoft as well. So I just wanted to kind of show those, really quickly before we are out of time. Unless there's anything else from Laura or Derry or Lisa that we wanted to talk about in Sway before we kind of do a real quick transition.
I think that's perfect. There's been a lot of questions about some of the translation stuff. So if we can address that. And then I think there's a handful of questions, but hopefully we'll have just a little bit of Q&A so that folks can get those like little nitpicky questions answered. But translation definitely the way to go.
Okay, yeah, no problem. There's always those little questions. So I'm gonna show you guys. So I'm in Microsoft, I'm in my home page here. And I'll just actually I'll go into our agenda. So I'm in Microsoft Word. I'm in Microsoft Word Online right now. So this is the agenda that I made for today's session. So say that I create this Microsoft Word document and I need to translate this because I want to also have this available for my non-English speaking parents. What I can do here is in Microsoft Word Online, if I just go under review, the review tab here, I have a translate option, which this has been there. This is also in the desktop version of Word. So you might be like, yeah, I know, but I've kind of found that a lot of people don't know this is here. And when I do this, I have two options. If I pull down my little drop down, I can translate a selection or I can translate the entire document. So really the difference there is I could make this a bilingual document if I just wanted one, or I can make two separate documents. So for example, if I did a bilingual document, I would hit translate selection. My sidebar is going to come up. Here it will auto detect my language. I can pull this down to determine what language I want to translate into. Last I had gotten a count, there were 64 in here, 64 languages. They add a lot frequently. So I would check for the languages that you support at your school. I'm going to do Arabic. And then what I would do is I would just highlight sections here. And then that's going to provide my translation. So if I wanted to make this just a bilingual document, say this was an agenda, I was having a parent meeting, I'd highlight it. You see it does a translator there. You also, if you go in and highlight the words, you can see the translation at the bottom. So you can really double check that context, which I love that. And then I would go back in my document, enter under it. And if I hit insert, that is going to insert my translated option or my translated text. So I would have it in English, then I have it in Arabic, and I could just do that, you know, depending if I wanted to do that for this entire section, or like I could do it line by line, and I would just kind of go through, and that's gonna, again, do my translation here, double check my context. I can go under it, hit insert, and I would just, you know, continue to do that throughout my document. And very, you know, within just a few minutes, I have a bilingual document that I could then send out to parents with information both in English and Arabic, or English and Spanish, or Chinese, or Korean, or whatever languages that you're supporting. So that's really the first option. Second option here is you may want to just create a different version for your parents, for your different languages that you support at your school. And to do that, I'm just going to delete my Arabic here so I don't confuse it. For that option, what I would do, I'm sorry, I know I don't need to reformat this, but that just would bother me too much. So say I created this agenda in English. Now I want to be able to create a separate copy to be able to send to my non-English speaking families. Instead of doing selection, I would go to document, and then it's really the same thing. We'll auto detect, I'll pull down, I'll choose the language that I want it to translate to. I'm going to do Spanish for this one, and I would hit translate. And this is going to create a separate copy. So you're not losing the original, you're creating a separate copy. And then you can see here, it's going to open that copy, and it's in a view only mode. To be able to save a copy, you want to hit this edit button. When I do that, it saves a copy of the translated document. So then it will kind of reopen it. And now you can see at the top, you see how it went from Sway PC Agenda and it added in Spanish, because now this is my Spanish version. And both of these are now automatically saved in my OneDrive, which is your cloud storage with your Microsoft account. So then I could send this Spanish version to my Spanish speaking parents. And then if I wanted to go back to the original and say, I also support Arabic speaking parents, I would go back and do the same thing, but I would make an Arabic version, or a Chinese version, or a Cantonese version. So you can create as many versions, and it will save all of those in your OneDrive, and it will label them, or it will name them rather, the language they're saved in. And then you could share those with parents. So really easy to just translate documents in here in general, just kind of right off the bat. You can also, Microsoft Translator is also an option. That's a separate app. I've done quite a few trainings just on Translator in and of itself, that you could use if you want to just translate, you know, simple text, or if you're writing an email, that's an option. But the last one I wanted to show you within the Office suite is just in PowerPoint Online. In PowerPoint Online, you can present with subtitles. So I wanted to show that. Let me just go to a PowerPoint deck. So say I was going to give a presentation to parents on Teams live events. And I'm either doing that online, or I'm going to share my screen, or if you're doing this in person and sharing your computer, what I would do is when I'm in PowerPoint Online, I would come over to Slideshow. Under Slideshow, I have an option to use subtitle. And if I pull this down, I'm setting up my spoken language, which will be English, setting up my subtitle language, which again, there are 60 odd languages here. I'm just gonna choose Portuguese. And then I would choose where I want it to go. So the overlaid just means it lays over the slide. When I create PowerPoint decks, mine tend to be very text heavy. So personally, I prefer it above the slide, but you can play with this if you want to do it at the bottom overlaid, the top overlaid, or below the slide. I'm going to leave it above, and then to turn it on, I just want to click on this. And then you see how it turns kind of a darker gray. So I have my subtitles on. So then when it comes time to do my presentation, I would just, from my slideshow, I would begin my slideshow from the beginning. It's going to put me into slideshow mode. It's going to start listening to me, and it's going to start providing subtitles for me as I'm talking. And I would just, say welcome. My name is Michaela. Today we are going over Teams live events. And I wanted to say my name because I wanted to show you there's like a 3 to 5 second delay. So you want to make sure that you're speaking. This is all using your microphone. So you want to be sure you're speaking clearly, you're enunciating, and that you're aware of that delay. Because then you would just go, to your next slide. But you want to make sure that this is kind of lining up as well.
Michaela, can I jump in? Because there's always
Sure.
questions about the accuracy of translations. And I would assume that it follows that same principle of if you are kind of either writing or speaking in plain language, it's more accurate. The more kind of complex sentences and phrases and vocabulary that we use, the less accurate it becomes. So can you confirm that for us?
It is. This one, the translator built into Microsoft is also more conversational. So you see when I'm talking, sometimes it'll kind of go back and adjust. And that's because it is a more conversational. So it's not going to do kind of a word for word. When you use a lot of online translators, they'll do a word for word. And that's where you can get things that do get lost in translation. So this has proved more accurate than other online translators on the market. But yes, if you speak in very plain language rather than really complex, it is going to provide a more accurate translation for you. And this one too, just to one question I get all the time too, and I'm not sure if this came up in the chat, but just to address it, this will only do one language at a time. So for, if you support several different families with different languages, you might want to put different groups together because it will only provide one, which I actually think is good. Because imagine if I had this subtitled in Portuguese up here, Spanish at the bottom, Cantonese on the side, it would just be really confusing because you're really translating a presentation. So I think that's good, but that is a question. So I'm not sure if that came up, but that's one I get really frequently. And it is also, it's using the microphone on my device. So you notice when Laura jumped in and spoke, it was translating what she was saying too. So it is using your microphone. So it will pick up other voices in the room, or if you're on a call, other voices, because it picks that up. So be aware of that as well. And then to get out of here, you just hit escape, and that takes you, back to your PowerPoint as well. So this is in the online version of PowerPoint. One last thing that I wanted to show you just in terms of PowerPoint is in the desktop version, you can, and I'm just going to open this in my desktop app. You can also translate the slides themselves using the same way that I showed you in Microsoft Word. And I'm hoping that should be added to the online version soon. It's not quite yet. But if you did want to provide your various families with the PowerPoint deck translated into different languages, you do the same thing that I showed you to do in Word, where you select languages and you can translate it. And let me just, it's taking a second to load here. Oops. So let me just close that. So in the desktop version of PowerPoint, if I go under review, it's the same place it is in Word. I also have, oh, I'm sorry. Let me just pin this down.
All of this is using Word?
I'm sorry?
All of the voice you were using, was that from the Word document?
When I was using the subtitles, that was from PowerPoint. But if you did want to translate your slides in PowerPoint under the review menu, you have that same translate feature. And it's the same thing. It's going to come up in your sidebar. And then you would select what you want to translate. And then you see it comes in here. This was in Chinese. So I could either insert it and change, like I could go slide by slide and change, you know, the language of everything that I have in here. Or I could go and I could I could leave it in English, and then I could do subtitles in other languages. So if I wanted to leave that in English and then enter down, put my Chinese under it, I'm gonna have to, you know, recenter it and kind of restructure my PowerPoint a bit, but you also have that option. I didn't mean to turn it around completely. So that's kind of built in as well. Like I said, the ability to translate slides, that's only in the desktop. Whereas on the online version, you can do the subtitles. Just keep that in mind. And then check accessibilities in PowerPoint as well. I just happened to see it, so I wanted to throw that out there. I know we talked about it in Sway, but you know, you guys had questions about the alternative text. That's built into all of our programs now. So you can always add in that alt text. You can always check for accessibility, make sure everything that you're creating for your families, for your parents, is going to be accessible content. And that's, you know, something that's really important to Microsoft. So that's all built in automatically as well. Okay, and I have gone 4 minutes over my allotted time, and I feel like I've just been talking a lot. So thank you for listening to me. Is there any questions or anything that I missed, or anything that you all want to go over before we are out of time? I hope that was helpful for everyone. Sway is one of my favorite programs, and you know, working with parent coordinators and family facing roles are some of my favorite people to work with. So thank you guys again for having me this morning.
Where can you find the tutorial, the Sway tutorial?
Sway tutorials, you can go, if you're in online and you go to the help option in their settings, there's a bunch of different options here. There's help and how-to articles that you can read in terms of getting started. And a lot of these have little videos that are built in. It'll also give you like step-by-step guides for how to do everything. So this is a really helpful place to go. This is just on the Microsoft support site, which is support.microsoft.com. Another place I go, there's also a lot of videos on Sway how-to videos on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, there's a whole, let me see if I can find it quickly. There's a whole Microsoft Sway section that just walks you through step by step. I should have put in Microsoft, sorry. So here you see this Microsoft Sway tutorials. This is a whole series. So I would definitely take a look at these just for some insight in general, because these can be really helpful. And then, like I said too, that support site is really great for so many things, but if you just go, this one is about accessibility, but if you're on the Microsoft support site, if you just go to support.office.com, there's support documents and videos and step-by-step how-to guides for every program in Microsoft. And honestly, I use this all the time because sometimes I forget how to do certain things if I'm a little rusty in them. I did it was a couple of months ago now, I had to do an Excel training, and I just don't use Excel every single day anymore, like using formulas. So I was like, oh, I really want to brush up. And I came in here and looked at the step-by-step guides, and it was really helpful. So if you go to the Sway section, there's help and there's training. So if you go into training, this is going to give you really that kind of step-by-step guide for how to do really everything, how to create Sways, how to add content, how to share, all of that stuff is built in here. And then if you go to, instead of going to training, if you go to help, that it gives you this page where you have like a getting started, adding content, share and access, and customize. And these two have great videos and quick answers and sharing and kind of all of that information. Do you, Lisa or Laura or Jerry, do you want me to add all these links into the chat, or would it be more helpful if I sent you all these various links and resources and then you could send them out to everyone?
Can we ask you to do both? So I think some folks want the links now, but if you could send it, you can send it to me and then we'll post this in the team.
Okay.
Because we have a parent coordinator team. So we'll do both. All right, folks.
And can we also just put it at the end of the agenda as resources?
Yes.
That's a great idea. I can put it in the agenda. I'll edit that today, and then you guys will have
Terrific.
the.
This was amazing, Michaela. We're truly grateful for you. I know you've been an amazing partner in this work and just really bridging Microsoft tools so that we can use it to empower our communities and our families. So we want to thank you. This was so, oh my gosh, this was so good. And just
thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, the chat, everyone is like, thank you, expressing that, you know, we even created a hashtag Swayed.
Oh, nice.
Team Swayed. So thank you, Michaela, for sharing this information. I do apologize. I think my dog is also excited to hear about Swayed.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sure. How do you when you're making the PowerPoint presentation? How do you do the poll? How do you insert the poll? Doing the, let's say when you're making PowerPoint presentation for the parents workshop, and how do you insert the poll?
So actually next week, we're gonna do a facilitation. If you join us next Friday, we're gonna talk about best practices and facilitation online. So you will learn how to do poll next week.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you for that, because that's a nice reminder. We want to give a shout out to our colleague, Greg Hagan. He is the FLC in Brooklyn North. He was scheduled to speak today, but as you know, as family liaisons, we get pulled in directions to speak. And today he wasn't able to stay, but he's coming next week. In the first 15 minutes, he's going to demonstrate the practice. So today we learned how to do it, and we actually have Greg, who's actually using Swayed every month.
He sends me his newsletters and they're amazing.
They're amazing.
That's a real treat because he does a great job customizing them and putting in all the relevant content for his school community. So that's awesome. I love Greg.
Thank you, Michaela. And we know, I mean, we couldn't do this work without you. And I know he gives you a lot of shout outs because he's actually using the practices. So next week, we're going to have Greg Higgins. He's the FLC from Brooklyn North, and he's going to show us how he uses Swayed. And then we're going to do a deep dive on part 2, facilitating meetings on a virtual platform. Thank you so much, everyone, for logging into our Friday series. I'm going to turn it over to Laura for final thoughts, and then we're going to jam out. So we're going to have an after party for a few minutes. Once we log off, we're gonna just jam for a little bit. It's your opportunity. We're gonna turn off the recording, and we're just gonna have just a quick jam session, and